Northeast Ohio's #1 choice for news. Cleveland's own Fox 8 News.
The process of the cleanup has begun as these images from Skyfox show us just some of the damage as well as some of the graffiti left behind from this weekend's violent protests. The demonstration in response to the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis police custody, but now also leaving business owners picking up the pieces just days after they were allowed to reopen because of the pandemic. The Central Business District is again the area that is under a curfew already tonight here in Cleveland. The new emergency order began today at noon and it goes until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Anyone in violation of this order could be arrested. And good evening. Welcome to Fox 8 News at 6 on this, the day after looters scarred large sections of downtown Cleveland. We begin our team coverage with a first on Fox. The Fox 8 I-Team now uncovering who police arrested for the downtown rioting. I-Team reporter Ed Gallick found new evidence. It may not have been something that just broke out at the spur of the moment.
You saw crowds terrorize downtown. The I-Team wondered how many of these people will have to pay. Will you get justice? The Cuyahoga County Sheriff tells us law enforcement booked into jail 66 people. As of midday Sunday, we found more than 20 held under felony investigation for aggravated rioting, plus curfew violations and vandalism. Of those held for felony rioting, we found some from Cleveland, but about half from other Northeast Ohio towns, including Macedonia, Avon, Menor, and Elyria. Most in this group in their 20s and 30s. And as investigators follow up on this and identify more suspects, the U.S. Attorney's Office says some people could face federal charges.
No justice, no peace.
Meantime, 2 officers sent the I-Team a copy of a flyer they say a rioter dropped in the street. It outlined specifically when to throw rocks and bottles, when to start getting wild, and more. It raises questions about how many in the crowd showed up simply to stir up trouble.
These protests aren't peaceful anymore. They're planned.
Cleveland Police Union President Jeff Fulmer.
An act of violence that was planned for a while. You know, when you see people walking up with backpacks and coming up, this was an attack on the city of Cleveland and on our police officers.
So when you wonder who could do all this, a snapshot emerging. Ed Gallick, Fox 8, I-Team.
The sheriff also telling us one juvenile was arrested with a weapon at Tower City. As you know, the riot left many downtown businesses in shambles, but the owners of a popular bakery protected their business from looting by arming themselves. Fox 8 News reporter Jack Shea has the story and reaction from the owners of Corbo's Bakery.
What started as a peaceful demonstration in downtown Cleveland protesting the death of George Floyd turns violent. Those intent on turning the protest into a riot go block by block, systematically smashing windows and looting stores, restaurants, and bars. But when they got to Corbo's Bakery on Euclid Avenue, they met with resistance. After protesters tried to force their way in with bats and other weapons, owner Joe Corbo and his 2 sons, Joe Jr. and John, armed themselves with guns and told the rioters that they would not allow them inside the bakery.
Look, we don't want any trouble. We don't want you guys in here damaging our property. We're just protecting our business. And truthfully, I would say maybe 80% of them understood. They left us alone and kept walking. And then there was like that 20% that just were accusing us of things and crazy things that just weren't true.
The protesters apparently took note of the weapons and the determination of the Corbo family to protect their bakery and decided to move on to other businesses, but not before breaking out a large window at Corbo's.
It's just sickening. I can't even put it into words. It's just awful. I mean, I can't even believe it. I thought we were done with that kind of stuff, you know, years and years ago. I thought Cleveland moved forward.
All across downtown, owners of iconic Cleveland businesses like Carl's Inn of the Barristers are picking up the pieces and trying to save whatever is left. Work crews spent the day making repairs at Carl's. The owner says the rioters smashed out every one of his windows and then looted food and liquor from the restaurant, which has been a meeting place for downtown Clevelanders and the legal community for decades.
It's sickening. It's sick to my stomach. I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't come down. I want to come down last night. They wouldn't let me come down. I said, you can't. You can't come to your own business. It's pretty sad.
Carl Abu Nader says he and many other downtown business owners support the right of the protesters to voice their anger. but he believes the rioters had a different agenda.
Terrible. I feel bad for the George Floyd family. Offer my condolences and everything, but we have nothing to do with this. They destroyed our place.
Jack Shea, Fox 8 News in Cleveland.
Now, as we've mentioned, many downtown business owners woke up to find, as you saw, busted windows, their stores looted, and piles of glass and debris in and around their businesses. But people from across Northeast Ohio volunteered to help rebuild Cleveland's hard-hit shopping and entertainment districts. Our Kevin Freeman has the details on that effort so far.
Massive cleanup got underway the moment an overnight curfew for Cleveland's downtown business district was lifted at 8 o'clock Sunday morning. People from across Northeast Ohio filled Euclid Avenue, East 4th Street, and Public Square, holding brooms, rakes, and shovels to clean up massive piles of broken glass and debris.
This is our city, and as much as we want to see the injustice stop, I just don't see how breaking businesses apart is going to do it.
Julie called and said, hey, we're going to head down, get some brooms, and let's go help some business owners clean up. We just jumped in the car and came out.
Business owners say the extensive vandalism done downtown Saturday creates a financial hit deeper than they were already facing.
It's really hard when you're driving home and people are sending you videos of people smashing something that you put a lot of your heart and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into building.
We're all trying to get over the COVID-19. We just opened up 10 days ago, and this happened, and it's throughout all of the business district of Cleveland, and I'm sorry, the city failed us.
It was pandemonium happening. They busted into the windows, and people were in there.
Monday, John Manning was scheduled to begin renovations for a new Caribbean restaurant on Euclid Avenue that was due to open July 3rd.
I'm definitely for the protests and people, standing up for our rights, but I'm not for vandalization and hurting businesses.
Owners say they are grateful for volunteers that are pitching in to help them rebuild and rebound.
Just seeing the outpour of people that just are just helping and stopping and like, let me help you, just is heartwarming.
In Cleveland, Kevin Freeman, Fox 8 News.
Thank you, Kevin. The Fox 8 I-Team has found some local leaders, as well as you heard the police union president, saying they don't believe the city of Cleveland was ready for yesterday's violent protest. I-Team reporter Peg Gallick has that story.
I don't know that we were ready for the tactics that were used. I don't know that we were ready for this different element.
Cleveland council members reacting with strong words Sunday about how the protests erupted in downtown Cleveland Saturday night.
I don't think that, folks were anticipating that level of destruction in downtown.
The damage to the downtown area Saturday followed what started out as a peaceful protest that was held downtown Cleveland to speak out against the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. The protests soon became violent and police cruisers were damaged and some businesses vandalized and looted. Several city leaders say they believe those who caused the damage are not from Cleveland, and they call what happened an attack on the city.
The city was not prepared for this. We had things that was malfunctioning. We had lack of personnel.
City officials say in the past, all Cleveland protests were peaceful, so this type of violence was not expected. Kelly added that many downtown businesses already are struggling due to the COVID-19 crisis, and now they are faced with having to make costly repairs.
This was an attack on poor people. This was an attack not just on the retail businesses, it was an attack on the dishwashers that need to get back to work. It was an attack on the waiters, the waitresses.
Council members and city leaders say they want to make sure this doesn't happen again.
We want to see people express themselves. We want to see peaceful demonstrations to make our community and our society a better place. But obviously we can't allow and can't tolerate the mass destruction.
In Cleveland, Peggy Gallick, Fox 8 I-Team.
The police union president says officers did a good job this weekend despite having objects thrown at them. He added some officers did receive minor injuries. In times such as these, many people look to leaders in our communities for comfort and guidance. Clevelanders and those in the surrounding areas have always had strong ties to their communities of faith. Fox 8's Alex Stokes spoke to several pastors about their reactions to the protest.
Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that.
Pastor R.A. Vernon of the Word Church in Cleveland invoked the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Sunday's sermon as the city woke up to the aftermath of what started out as peaceful demonstrations over the death of George Floyd.
The reason why I went to the protest yesterday was to make sure there was a sense of love while also having a real sense of justice on our mind.
Greater Cleveland clergy leaders had powerful messages this Pentecost Sunday after the rioting and looting in other cities also came to Cleveland, echoing the Huff riots here half a century ago.
What happens is that the violence tends to overshadow the whole point, and folks end up talking not about George Floyd or the protests concerning his death.
Reverend Courtney Clayton Jenkins of the South Euclid Church of Christ also condemns the violence, but is understanding.
I wish that people would get it through peace.
To her, the COVID-19 pandemic only accentuates the pain.
And I think a lot of what we saw yesterday was our crying out for community out of a place of isolation.
Vernon brought his two sons and says he was glad that the peaceful part was so diverse.
To see more whites standing for justice, that's what it takes if we're going to heal the land.
As to the role of these pastors,
the role of clergy is to bridge the gap. The role of clergy is to be the voice of ethics.
There are ways to protest that elevate your cause. There are ways to protest that can endanger not just your cause, but your life.
In Jenkins' sermon Sunday, she asked Jesus to breathe the Holy Spirit on all for empowerment when too many are saying, I can't breathe.
'Twas the night before Pentecost, and the nation burned. And the children asked, why is it burning? And we said, because racism is running amok.
Alex Stokes, Fox 8 News.
The Cleveland Catholic Diocese also released a statement asking people to pray for a, quote, restoration of peace in our community and a return to civil order. Turning now to the coronavirus pandemic, Ohio Governor Mike DeWine has not held a briefing on the virus since Thursday, but we have some new numbers from the Ohio Department of Health. There are now 35,513 cases here in the Buckeye State. It is another day where less than 500 new cases have been reported. Unfortunately, 2,155 people have died from the virus, but that number is only up 6 from yesterday. Ohio continues its reopening process tomorrow, with facilities such as banquet centers allowed to reopen their doors. Last week, Governor DeWine also said he would try to address the status of amusement parks, zoos, and museums this week. And there are new concerns that the coronavirus numbers nationwide could spike in light of all of the recent protests in Georgia. Atlanta's mayor told people if they were out protesting, they should probably go get tested for the virus this week. Health experts fear people not showing symptoms, but carriers of the virus could be unknowingly inflicting others and infecting them when they stand close to them at protests, not wearing a mask or chanting and shouting. We will have an in-depth look at the protests happening in other parts of Ohio and the nation coming up in our next half hour. As we have reported, the message of peaceful protesters here in Cleveland who sought to shine a light on the killing of an unarmed African-American man in Minnesota by a white police officer, their message had to compete this weekend with the destruction and looting caused by a different set of people. After the destruction, Clevelanders turned out this morning to clean up their city. Here's part of it, including here at the Police Memorial and the Perry statue. Ken Haddon of K&E Chemical provided the equipment, and volunteers, including Judge David Mattia and his wife Monica, helped provide the labor. They couldn't finish the job today, but say they will be back to do just that. Now, this is West 25th and Lorraine, live pictures from Skyfox, as you can see at the moment. We're not sure exactly what this incident is. You can see National Guard troops there who have been deployed into Cleveland as well, along with Cleveland police officers, the National Guard here to assist Cleveland police. Remember, there is a curfew in effect, but for the Central Business District only until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So once again, there is a heavy presence of police and the National Guard in different areas of Cleveland trying to keep the peace, which got out of hand last night. The Minnesota Attorney General addresses the George Floyd case, what he says could happen, as he cautions the investigation is still in its early stages. And the pandemic causing UPS to make some changes, what you may notice different the next time you order a larger package. Hi, Beth.
Yeah, thankfully the weather absolutely beautiful today, but on the cool side, the winds are coming out of the north. That puts that big chop out there on the lake. Winds are going to be coming out of the south. We're going to warm things back up and you'll be able to go back out on Lake Erie. I'll tell you when the 80s arrive coming up.
A live look from Skyfox now. You're looking at I-90 eastbound at the Superior exit, and you can see it is blocked off by the Highway Patrol. This is the case in every exit on the Interbelt right now as the curfew remains in place in downtown Cleveland. It started at noon today. It goes until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning for what is being called the Central Business District. So all of the on-ramps and off-ramps throughout the Interbelt are being blocked by police and Highway Patrol officers right now. You can move through 90 as you see the cars on the left. 90 is moving just fine. But again, you cannot get on or off from the ramps on the Interbelt because of the curfew in place in Cleveland. Now, Skyfox earlier today gave us a bird's eye view of the damage after a protest in downtown Cleveland turned violent. The protest in response, of course, to the death of George Floyd in police custody in Minnesota. The building housing the Jack Casino, the former Higbee building, is among those damaged after the protest. Workers had to board up that casino. Again, the Central Business District in Cleveland, as highlighted on this map, is under a curfew at this hour. The second curfew went into effect today at noon. It remains in effect until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Anyone who is violating the curfew is subject to arrest. Cuyahoga County Executive Armin Budish releasing a statement on the protests and riots in Cleveland this weekend. He says in part, quote, "In our downtown Cleveland, many businesses, restaurants, and organizations were devastated by the riots last night. Some may not recover. We must remember that this is our community and that business owners of all races are being deeply affected by the destruction of their property. I fully support a peaceful protest and encourage you to express your desire for change." The cleanup has only just begun for businesses damaged during yesterday's protests here in Cleveland. A massive effort got underway this moment a curfew overnight went out of effect. That was at 8 o'clock this morning. And the new one began at noon, so they had 4 hours to clean. People from across Northeast Ohio filled Euclid Avenue, East 4th Street, and Public Square, holding brooms, rakes, and shovels to try and help clean up massive piles of broken glass and debris. Business owners say this creates a deeper financial burden than what they were already facing due to the pandemic.
It's really hard when you're driving home and people are sending you videos of people smashing something that you put a lot of your heart and effort and blood, sweat, and tears into building.
I'm definitely for the protests and people, us standing up for our rights, but I'm not for vandalization and, hurting businesses.
It's sickening. It's sick to my stomach. I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't come down. I want to come down last night. They wouldn't let me come down. Said you can't. You can't come to your own business. It's pretty sad.
Cuyahoga County Sheriff tells the Fox 8 I-Team law enforcement booked 66 people into jail. As of midday today, more than 20 of those people were found to be held under felony investigation for aggravated rioting, curfew violations, as well as vandalism. The concern for violent protests now also causing a local shopping and restaurant area to close for the day. Legacy Village in Lyndhurst is remaining closed today as a precautionary measure. In a statement, Legacy Village's general manager, Susan Windle, says in part, quote, "The safety of our customers, tenants, employees, and the communities we serve is our #1 priority. Northeast Ohio as a whole represents the epitome of kindness, strength, resilience, and perseverance. As a proud member of the greater Cleveland community, we believe that will help us come together during these uncertain times." It's not clear yet, by the way, if Legacy Village will continue that closure after today. And nearby, almost just across the street, Beechwood Place is also closed today out of an abundance of caution. In a statement, a representative for the property's owners says they are temporarily closed as a safety precaution for their shopping center community. In our state's capital, it is the 4th straight day protesters have gathered outside the State House. They're asking for justice now following the death of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis. Columbus has enacted a citywide curfew from 10 at night until 6 in the morning until the mayor chooses to rescind it. Police arrested 59 people yesterday after the second night of protests turned violent. Anyone outside without authorization during the curfew window can be arrested. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine also activated the National Guard in Columbus, as he did in Cleveland, to help with the situation. And another Ohio city is under a curfew in light of all of the recent protests. In Cincinnati, several fires damaged buildings, as you can see. Thankfully, an officer wasn't hurt when his helmet was hit by a bullet early this morning. The third day of protests there. The officer was working to disperse a crowd near the University of Cincinnati when several shots rang out. The Minnesota Attorney General says more people could face charges in the death of George Floyd, but warns the investigation is still in its early stages.
Well, let me say that we are very early in this process, very early. It is not uncommon to amend charges. It is not uncommon to add defendants. The fact is the investigation is still going on, and it's actually in the middle of the investigation, or maybe even the beginning of the middle. And so I don't want anyone to conclude that these are all the charges that are going to be there.
Floyd died in police custody last week after a now former officer who's been fired could be seen on video kneeling on his neck for several minutes. That former officer, Derek Chauvin, has been charged with third-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in connection to Floyd's death. 3 other officers were also on the scene, and all of them were fired as well. Despite the announcement of charges against the officer at the center of the investigation, protests have continued nationwide, but state and local authorities are trying to stop the lawlessness as well as the destruction. Fox News correspondent Garrett Tenney is in Minneapolis with more on what lawmakers are saying and what the president declared today.
Anger boiling over into a 5th night of violent protest across the country, and already more demonstrations are underway Sunday. Americans in dozens of cities woke up to shattered glass, damaged buildings, and burnt-out police cruisers following another night of violent protest. But that isn't stopping tens of thousands from taking to the streets across the country again on Sunday. It was a slightly different scene Saturday night, with thousands of National Guards troops activated in at least 15 cities in Washington, D.C., and state and local police fighting back with rubber bullets and tear gas. In preparation for another night of conflict, officials in several major cities, including Minneapolis and the surrounding suburbs, putting a curfew in place.
We're going to be extending the curfew into this evening.
Minnesota officials reporting 20% of their arrests Saturday were individuals from out of state. Federal officials have intelligence that domestic terrorists from both the far left and the far right are trying to exploit the protest to create chaos. But President Trump is taking aim at Antifa, tweeting Sunday, "The United States of America will be designating Antifa as a terrorist organization." Many of those calling for change in social justice, though, say the violence and destruction is overshadowing their message.
Any violence in the midst of these protests simply takes away from the actual issue, which is that George Floyd lost his life.
As for the president's tweet, it's not clear he has the legal authority to designate a domestic organization as a terrorist group. In Minneapolis, I'm Garrett Tenney, Fox News.
The protests here in the United States are now reaching to other parts of the world. Thousands gathered in central London today to offer support for American demonstrators chanting "No justice, no peace" and waving signs with the words "How many more?" The protesters even ignoring a UK government ban that does not allow crowds because of the pandemic, and police did not stop the demonstrators. They marched to the U.S. Embassy, where a long line of officers surrounded that building. Target is now temporarily closing dozens of its stores in the United States as protests continue to erupt across the nation. The company says its focus is on employee safety and helping communities heal. The retailer also says the workers impacted by the closures will still be paid for their scheduled hours. The Minnesota-based company is also helping its local community. Target says it will provide essentials to people living in areas around Minneapolis and St. Paul, where the protests have caused the most damage. Looters ransacked a Target in Minneapolis, and an Atlanta location was also damaged by demonstrators. President Trump says he is postponing the G7 summit in the United States scheduled for next month. He says the change comes to invite additional countries to the meeting of different economic world leaders. The president says he plans to invite Russia, Australia, South Korea, and India, advocating for the group's expansion. This comes as some G7 leaders have been hesitant to attend the summit during the coronavirus pandemic. No new date has been set yet for the meeting. but President Trump said it could come sometime in September. Mission accomplished this morning. The SpaceX Dragon capsule docked at the International Space Station with 2 NASA astronauts on board. This is video of the moment that happened. Astronauts Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken were ready to take over manual control if needed, but that wasn't necessary as the spacecraft docked automatically without any help. It was an historic launch, of course, yesterday, the first with astronauts on board from U.S. soil in almost a decade. NASA astronaut Chris Cassidy greeted the incoming crew by ringing the ship's bell aboard the space station. The docking even occurred a little early, barely 19 hours after the takeoff from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral, Florida, yesterday afternoon. So from space, we head down towards Public Square, where Euclid Avenue fortunately looks quiet today after the protests and riots and looting yesterday nearby. The famous chandelier in the middle of the Playhouse Square district down there, the second largest theater district in America, by the way. And it's a beautiful sunny day, if a little cool. Beth says we have some changes coming, right, Beth?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to start warming things back up, even starting with tomorrow. So it's more the same pattern. We're going from the cool to the warm and the humid. Some of you might complain. Some of you will turn on your air conditioner starting about Tuesday morning. The next chance of rain does come in Monday night, right around 2 a.m. on Tuesday. And we're heading back to the 80s for a good portion of this week. Not looking like that tonight. Tonight's on the cold side. Matter of fact, some of you might drop down into the upper 30s, believe it or not. I don't think it'll be record breaking, but clear skies and we'll get some of that cooling. In the most part, everyone will be down into the mid to the low 40s. The winds of loft, when we're in the blue section, we're on the cold side, and you can see we're still getting that northwest breeze. It's been a little brisk along the lakeshore. But as I go into Monday, you can see we start transitioning into the green area, which is a little more pleasant, the 60s and the 70s. The 80s start coming out when the yellow starts coming. You can see by Tuesday, we'll start warming things right back up again. And then we'll be looking at some rain, and the dew points will be on the rise as the humidity is going to be a little thicker. The dew points measure the moisture in the air, and right now there's like almost none. We're into the 30s. Super dry out there, super comfortable. As it gets up, it's measured in degrees. When it gets closer to 60, people get a little uncomfortable. So this is what it looks like for tomorrow. We're still in the 30s for a good portion of the day. Some might bump up into the low 40s, but that's still really comfortable. We don't see the 60s start returning until Tuesday afternoon, so that's where I expect people will start complaining again about the heat and the humidity. In the meantime, Tuesday will also usher in some rain. You can see overall on Monday we're dry. That Monday rain comes in after midnight, right around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. The east side's going to get more rain than everyone else, but in the meantime, it's not a total washout. Tuesday afternoon will probably be dry, but the grass will be a little on the soggy side. In the meantime, as we go to Wednesday we'll have a lot of showers and storms around lingering throughout the day. Again, not a total washout, but not looking to be a pretty day. And I say that because I know what comes after that. We have a lot of beautiful days coming up. By Thursday, the system falls to the south by Thursday afternoon. So at least you can understand that part of Tuesday is going to see some rain showers. Most of the day on Wednesday, your chance is pretty good. And then Tuesday morning, then the system scoots out of here. Tonight, 45 degrees, a few frosty spots out there. Snuggle alert, absolutely, because some of you are down into the upper 30s, unseasonably cold. Tomorrow, 74 with lots and lots of sunshine. Clouds will thicken up right in the evening time. We'll have a cool night, not bad sleeping, but just keep in mind that 54 comes with that chance of rain showers as we head towards Tuesday morning. So Tuesday morning, we see the rain. Tuesday afternoon, we'll start heating things back up into the 80s, and it'll get a little on the sticky side. Wednesday, we'll still be in the 80s. Some of you could be in the upper 80s. It could be that hot and that humid. The lake will be nice and flat on those days, but you'll be dodging storms. The winds continue to come out of the south, but look at that stretch of some gorgeous weather. June is starting to look and feel a little bit more like summertime. Bill?
Just what we wanted to hear. All right, thank you, Beth. A unique way to protect employees. Next here on Fox 8 News at 6, how United Airlines is providing masks for its employees without spending a lot of cash and saving a symbol of freedom. How one deputy has made it its life work to rescue bald eagles, and how he helped his latest one. And of course, we want to hear the stories of Cleveland's Own helping Cleveland's Own. Every day, we try to highlight some of the good deeds being done across Northeast Ohio. We have a link for you to send pictures and stories on our website at fox8.com under Seen on TV. You can also share stories on your Facebook page as well.
Download the Fox 8 app today and get breaking news, weather, and more, all on your smartphone or tablet. Presented by Ken Ganley Nissan.
Finally tonight, a sergeant in Stafford County, Virginia is back at it again, rescuing yet another injured bald eagle in the same county. As reporter Caroline Patrick shows us, it's his 19th rescue of such a bird, and after all these years of doing it, he still gets butterflies.
Some people call him Sergeant Anthony McCall.
When I accepted this job, or I took this job, I never thought that I was going to be going after eagles.
Others call him the Eagle Whisperer.
I don't know if I liked it too much at first, but it's grown on me. I like it.
Sergeant McCall is an animal control deputy with the Stafford County Sheriff's Office, who has found a calling in helping to save injured bald eagles.
Everybody at the office knows that if an eagle comes out, I want to go do it.
Look at the size of him. He's bigger than the other one.
Wednesday, he rescued his 19th injured bald eagle in Stafford County.
I still get the butterflies and I still get excited, you know, because it's an eagle.
Sergeant McCall says over the years, the calls for eagle rescues have increased.
I didn't know they were that prevalent. They weren't when I first started, but they're getting more and more every year.
And although he's seen as somewhat of an eagle expert,
See them in the sky flying.
he's still always surprised by how big they are.
They're big. And when you get your hands on them, you get to see how big they are and why they're the nation's bird. They're just beautiful and very powerful. We'll go out and we'll get it, but it's the long-term care that they're being provided with from the wildlife centers and the rehabbers in the state that really deserve the recognition in this.
McCall's latest rescue, by the way, was found on railroad tracks. He took the eagle to the county's animal shelter for proper care. Let's get a quick final look at our weather with Beth, and it is changing, isn't it, Beth?
It really is. So we're going from the cold tonight into a beautiful day tomorrow. We're crystal clear overnight. You can see a lot of stars out there. You can watch the eagles before the sun sets just before 9 o'clock. And then get ready for a gorgeous Monday, 74 degrees with lots of sunshine. The heat and the humidity and the chance of rain showers begins to increase as we go to Tuesday. Tuesday and Wednesday, I wouldn't count on Mother Nature to water all your flowers out there. However, on Wednesday, that'll be your best opportunity. Thursday morning, the system pushes out of here. So Thursday's not an all-day rain affair, but you can see we're pushing the 80s, the mid-70s, Bill. Gorgeous weather for the first week of June.
Just what we wanted. All right, thank you, Beth. And that is all the time we have for right now. Thank you for joining us for Fox 8 News at 6, both at home and online. We will be back in about 3 hours for Fox 8 News at 10. Remember, the Central Business District of Cleveland remains under a curfew until 8 tomorrow morning. We will keep an eye out for you. Thanks for joining us. Good night.